YouTube family, Lisa A. Romano, the Breakthrough Life Coach. Namaste. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. So I titled this video, How to Make the Law of Attraction Work. And because it's also very frustrating for some of us who think we're doing everything right. And we just can't get it to work for us. And then we end up thinking, you know, screw this, it's too hard, or this shit don't work, and we give up. You know, we stop making our vision boards, we stop thinking positively, and before you know it, it's just not working. So I also want to address, I had a YouTube viewer tell me that she came from a very religious background, but she really enjoys this channel because I'm able to bring lots of different ideas, spiritual ideas, with scientific ideas, with ideas that pertain to what some consider woo-woo, which is the law of attraction. It really isn't woo-woo because the law of attraction is science, and it's also spiritual or ethereal, if you will. You know, the Bible says that we should walk by faith and not by sight. The law of attraction says, see it, you know, believe it, and you shall have it, you know. So science is proving that when we actually, they've done studies where it's called the double slit experiment, and I really do suggest for those of you who are curious, look it up. Really interesting. Robert Lanza is a scientist now who's doing groundbreaking work, and he's actually proving that we're creating our reality as we go. So at the end of the day, I think that all of these different ideas about life are all basically saying the same thing. So I wanted to say thank you to that YouTube viewer. Today we're going to be talking about my client Andy, and I want to say thank you to Andy, who lives in London, who owns Retro Sofas. So if anybody's in London and they want a sofa and a good cappuccino, because he's brilliant, he created his sofa warehouse, or where he actually shows his showroom of sofas, actually now has this amazing coffee bar. So I think it's great. So that's besides the point. I digress. So kudos to you, Andy. That's the way I say thank you for letting me, you know, use your story today for my video. So here we go. We're going to use one of my diagrams. Thank you so much for being gentle with me too, dear ones, because I know I'm not the best graph person or, you know, artist or whatever, but I'm trying. So a little background about Andy. Andy is a really sweet person, and unfortunately a few years back his wife passed away from cancer. They had a bit of a tumultuous relationship, and Andy was definitely the codependent in the relationship, definitely the people pleaser, wanted to make his wife happy, and she was a very good woman too, but she had some issues from childhood that haunted her, and Andy, bless his soul, saw that, and he wanted to protect her and take care of her and nurture her and hopefully have the bad effects of childhood minimized by his love and his care for her. Needless to say, they, like I said, well, earlier, they had a very tumultuous relationship at times. They opened up a coffee shop years ago, and while they were together in business, they had some moments where he thought, I can't work with her, like it's just too difficult, or I have to get out of here. You know, maybe I'll just leave, you know, and let her work the coffee shop, or I'll just close the place up. I don't know. And like all entrepreneurs, those of you who understand, you know, what it is to be an entrepreneur, and certainly, you know, in this type of a business where you need a team, Andy had to hope and pray that he got the right people to be the waiters, the waitresses, the chefs, whatever. You're reliant upon your employees. So while Andy's going through this process, he's feeling great. And then his daughter says, you know, could you hire my friend? And he says, sure. So he interviews her, and he feels a little funny about her, and thinks to himself, I don't think this is going to work out. But Andy goes ahead and he hires her anyway. And the day of the opening, he put his foot down with her because she had made some, you know, unrealistic demands. And he, being the business owner, finally put his foot down. It was over something minimal. And she couldn't handle that boundary, and she stormed off, and she abandoned him in this store the day of the soft opening. So Andy said that after that, we coached on Thursday, and that actually happened. He had the feeling that he should not hire her on Thursday. Then they opened the store on Saturday, and then he said he was doing really well prior to this interaction with this girl, but when after she walked out, he just felt himself slipping, and which is really sad news, because Andy, the last time Andy and I coached, he was in a really great place. So when we coached this week, he was telling me about how rough it was for him and how surprised he was that he had found himself falling so below and back into old patterns. And so, we thought about it for a little bit, and then what I did was I asked Andy a few questions. So I'm going to show you the graph that I built for Andy, the chart. So I'll do it this way. Hopefully that'll go. Oh boy, I'm going to have to do it this way. Okay, so now I spoke to Andy on Thursday, and Andy was in a really good place. After we spoke, Andy had a conversation with this young woman, and he had a gut feeling that he should not hire her. So up here is the moment we ignore our gut, we get pulled below the veil. You'll hear me talk a lot about above the veil and below the veil. Below the veil represents our subconscious programming. It represents all our dysfunctional thinking from childhood. It represents the default setting, the pain versus pleasure principle, and our basic physiology, because our bodies react to the way we think, and our bodies react to our emotions and our energy, and our bodies react to subconscious programming all day, every day. That's outside our conscious awareness. So when I say below the veil, I'm talking about everything that exists below the veil. And I wrote, oh no, because everything that's below the veil, we don't have conscious control over. That's why Jung says, we need to make that which is unconscious conscious. That is the way to heal, one of the ways to heal. So Andy had that moment where he ignored his gut. And you can see what happened. When he ignored his gut, he got pulled below the veil. And as his week progressed, it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And after he had the big blow up and the kid walked out on him, he found himself way below the veil of consciousness, experiencing lots of self-doubt, all this stuff that he used to experience when he was a little boy, and he was abandoned by his parents and severely neglected, and abused severely by omission. Very little tactile stimulation, very little contact, lots of criticism, told that he was worthless. So he fell below the veil of consciousness. Even though he's an amazing business owner, he's opened up businesses his whole life, highly successful, even though people love him, when this happened on Saturday, it knocked him for a loop, and he began to get pulled below the veil of consciousness. Now hold on, there's really something really cool I have to teach you. So what happened here, on Tuesday, he took a positive action. So on Tuesday, he decided to go to a Thai temple in London, and he said some prayers for his wife, deceased wife, because his wife was Thai. And he took his two daughters, and they spoke to the monk there, and they had a lovely time at this temple. So what he did was he took a positive action. So positive action began to pull himself literally up out of the water, or up out of the subconscious mind. And from that moment on, the days got better and better and better and better, which is awesome. So an event, the minute you ignore your gut, what will happen is you'll get pulled below the veil. And what will happen is things will get progressively worse, because this is like quicksand. And you need to take a positive action, because this is an action-based oriented planet. And when you take a positive action outside of this subconscious programming, so you from higher self say, I know I feel like crap, but I'm going to do A, B, and C, and D until I start to feel better, until I reel myself out of this damn basement, which is what Andy did. Now this is where it gets amazing. So I'm drawing this chart out for Andy, and then I ask Andy, let me ask you something, Andy. This is where the law of attraction comes into place, and also what I believe is representative of what happens in the amygdala and the hippocampus. So the amygdala and the hippocampus work in sync, and one holds our memories and one is related to our emotions. And so the amygdala and the hippocampus, since the beginning of time, the amygdala gets formed, I think, 28 days after conception. The hippocampus doesn't get fully matured till after 3 years old. So we have the amygdala that is feeling and registering feelings up until 3, but they have really no filing cabinet to drop drop the event in, right? So we're just feeling. But we are everything that we feel from the minute we have with sensory, the minute we get conceived, we're downloading information into our sensory bodies. May not be cognitive, any area in our brain where we can actually pull it out of like a file cabinet and say, oh, I know why I feel that way. But our bodies will register these feelings. That's why so many people, those in my coaching program and those that I coach and those on YouTube say, I can't remember what happened, but I feel like X, Y, and Z happened. Exactly. Because everything that happens to us gets downloaded into the sensory body on a visceral level. So our bodies will have this feeling. It'll have an emotion, which is energy and motion. I believe that. Emotions are energy and motion. So we'll feel this energy moving, but we won't have a cognitive feeling to tie it to, or an event to tie it to. We'll just have these emotions, this energy that we're not really familiar with. We don't know why we feel them. So I said to Andy, tell me about a time in the past where you were opening up a coffee shop. And he said, well, I opened up a coffee shop with my wife. I said, what did that feel like? He said, well, there were good days and bad days. I said, did you ever have a feeling that you could not work with your wife when you opened up the coffee shop? And he said, yes. I said, did you ever worry that you might walk out when you were opening up that coffee shop with your wife? Yes. Were you ever worried that your wife might walk out? And he said, yes. So we worried about being abandoned? Are you worried about abandoning the coffee shop? He said, yes. So what I explained to Andy was, in my opinion, he was creating this reality. So here he was creating a coffee shop. And in his mind, in the past, was all this data that was tied to creating a coffee shop. Now, his wife's old energy was part of that old play or that old script. So I don't think it's odd at all that he attracted into this experience an energy being that just kind of fit into this template from the past. The past template was coffee shop, some anxiety, his wife's personality, the abrasiveness, the arguments, the unpredictability, the instability, the feeling like, oh no, she's going to get pissed off, the fear of rocking the boat. All of those dynamics came are actually in a template or on a template that's stored in Andy's brain. So now here he is in the present time, creating a very similar template. Coffee shop, he's still there, his daughters is still there, but what's missing? His wife. The energy of his wife. And sure enough, who walks through the door or who walks into his reality is an energy being that's very similar to his wife. With this young girl, and he said what he said, and she stormed out, I'm not working here, she left. From that point on, that triggered him, and he began sinking deeper into anxiety, depression, and despair. So at this moment, when this young girl walked out, let's call her Mary. When Mary walked out, he was feeling very much the way he felt when his wife died, when he felt abandoned by her. So energetically, this Mary was playing the part of his wife. But what Andy was unaware of, basically, was that when his consciousness stepped back to, it's really difficult to explain. I really hope I'm doing a good job. You guys let me know. If I have to do this video over, I will. So what happened was when Mary stepped into this template and she became a part of his experience as they began building this new coffee shop, unconsciously, Andy was unaware that all of his feelings related to his wife were being brought up to the surface, because this young girl very much reminded him energetically of his wife. So when you bump into people who remind you of your ex-husband or your mother, guess what? It's like you tap a vein. The amygdala and the hippocampus work in sync, and the amygdala is constantly receiving visceral information from the past. So when Andy was experiencing Mary, his body, his amygdala, was also experiencing data from the past. that was associated not to Mary, but to his wife. So his feelings got very, very activated, emotional. A lot of energy got stirred, but consciously he couldn't understand why. When we discussed it, and he said, yes, that resonates with me strongly. I've got goosebumps, and I'm itchy, sorry. I don't know why that happens when I make videos. But anyway, he connected with it, and he said it resonated with him, and he felt very, very strongly that that's what happened. I believe that this was an opportunity for Andy to heal what he could not heal in the past. Because in the past, he could not set a boundary with his wife. Couldn't do it. He was below the veil of consciousness, okay? He was below the veil of consciousness. He was trying to make someone happy. He was being a people pleaser. He was being a codependent. He was feeling insecure. He was feeling unworthy. He was feeling afraid to rock the boat. He was feeling afraid to be alone. And so with his wife, he was unable to set that boundary. But in this experience, in the now, last Saturday, 2016, Mr. Andy, he was able to set a boundary. And what happened was, this girl, Mary, she could not stay in Andy's experience because she doesn't resonate at his new vibration. You see, if Andy was resonating truly with her vibration, she'd still be working there. And he would still be people-pleasing. And he would be bowing down to his employee. And she'd be running the show. And he would be enabling her. And there would be, guess what? In time, Andy's business, perhaps it would have gone out of business, or the coffee shop at least. Things would have just gone downhill from there. Because what would have happened is that energy activation would have pulled him deep into the subconscious mind where all the negative programming is stored. So how do we get... I made this diagram for you to help you understand how you can get the law of attraction to work for you. So you get the law of attraction to work for you by milking a very high state of consciousness, by learning how to look for signs and clues that tell you that whatever you're experiencing in the now, ask yourself, have I experienced this before? So many of you have dated the same person, just in a different body. So if you're out on a date, let's say, and you feel a red flag, ask yourself, when you get that kick in the stomach, your internal guidance system is trying to tell you something. So you ask yourself, when have I felt like this before? Let the information come, because when you ask yourself a question, a true question like that, you usually get the answer. When have I felt like this before? Now, don't judge it. Oh, I felt like that before. Now you're in a position to steer your ship. So you get the law of attraction to work for you when you become highly conscious, when you know what you are able to ask yourself, when have I experienced this before, especially when you're experiencing something unpleasant. And then what you do is when you know that you've experienced this before, you know that it's been unpleasant, you make a shift. You say to yourself, this is not what I want. And then you act in the real world. Remember, he took a positive action, right? So when he took a positive action, when he acted on how he felt, nope, this doesn't feel good, and I'm going to make myself feel better. What he began to do was he started to manifest a different reality. So very much the law of attraction and how we get the law of attraction to work for us is you have to stay above the veil of consciousness. Because if you don't stay above the veil of consciousness, you will repeat all your programs and all the patterns from the past, and you'll think that's your reality. You won't realize that you created that reality by default, because your brain's got to use something for creation, and if you're not thinking above the veil, it's going to work below the veil. So what I want you to do today is I would like you to write 5 things that, yeah, I hurt myself. See that? Breaking a dog biscuit. Could you imagine that, dear ones? A dog biscuit. I hurt myself. But anyway, I want you to write down on a piece of paper or in a journal. I have so many journals. Let me show you. These are all different journals. I bought them at TJ Maxx. Believe you can. And you're halfway there. Notes on life. And I really like this latest one. Live a great story. So, sorry, I don't know if you saw that well. Is that better? Awesome, right? And so Every day I come into my office and I light my candle and I write out my intention for the day and I write out what I want to experience for the day. So to get you using the law of attraction to your advantage, try to live above the veil. And we live above the veil by recognizing there is definitely a subconscious mind that will run your ship if you don't take control over it. So if you don't take control over your conscious field, then your mind will have no other choice but to run the data that's been stored there. And guess what? You're just repeating your cycles. So you want to start using your time deliberately. So every day wake up and light a candle, create a sacred space, and then write about 5 things you'd like to experience in the day. And then write 5 things that you'd like to experience sometime in the future. And then every day, what I want you to do is take a positive action towards one of those goals. Well, each goal. So the 5 goals for the day could be, my 5 goals of the day usually have to do with how I want to feel. I want to feel hopeful. I want to feel jubilant. I want to feel non-resistant. The minute you feel in resistance to everything, you pinch yourself off from the stream of abundance. You constrict. When you stay non-resistant, you expand, and the stream of abundance, you just flow with it. So what you want to do is ask yourself 5 emotions that I want to experience today. Gratitude, peacefulness, contentment, joy, bliss. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look out into your environment and try to figure out how you can actually, even if it's just for a moment, experience a little bit of bliss. For me, when I look at a tree, and my kids must be sick of me, because I look at trees and I'm like, wow, like that tree is my partner. Like, trees are our lungs. You should really think about that, dear ones. I mean, it's just incredible. Our planet breathes. Our planet is alive. If we didn't have trees, we would cease to exist. We breathe out CO2, and a tree breathes in CO2 and then outputs O2 so we could breathe. I mean, are you kidding me? That's fabulous information. That's just amazing. So let's say you're trying to understand that the law of attraction, if you want to attract wonderful things into your life, then it's all about your vibration, right? So what we want to do is we want to milk your vibration. You've got to feel good, because when you feel good, you raise your vibration, and then you start to gravitate on the plane that holds all the things that you want to manifest. So 5 emotions every day. It could be forgiveness, it could be gratitude, whatever. And then what you're going to do is you're going to find a way. It's going to be your intention to make sure, even if it's just for a moment, you experience contentment. It could be, wow, these shoes fit really well. Wow, the house is peaceful. The kids are not fighting. Wow, the mail came on time. I'm really happy. It could be that short. But what you're trying to do is pull yourself out of the subconscious mind. When I say pull yourself, I mean pull your focus, okay? You're pulling your focus out of the subconscious mind, and you're deliberately focusing on something else. So this line, let's say, represents below the veil, and anything above that line, sorry, I'm just covering my mouth. Let's say this line represents everything below the veil, and if you've had a crappy childhood, there's a lot of crap below the veil. You know, Andy was someone who beat himself up. You know, his father would say that he was worthless, he wasn't good, he wasn't worth a damn. Could you imagine telling a baby they're not worth a damn? That's just horrible. That's just horrible. And that becomes what we think about ourselves. So how the hell do we manifest and use the law of attraction to our advantage when our base emotional set point is so negative about ourselves? So what we have to do is, yes, we have to tinker around in here, but those of you who are interested in how to make the law of attraction start working for you today, what I want you to do is start taking deliberate control over your focus. So 5 emotions, 5 happy emotions you want to experience, and then what you're going to do is deliberately, in your environment for that day, keep that list out in front of you. So you're looking at it. You know what you're supposed to be experiencing. And then deliberately find a way to experience that emotion that you claim that you want to experience. Now, the 5 emotions that you want to, or the 5 things that you want to experience in the future. What you want to do is, let's say you want to travel to Tahiti. So you create a vision board, you go get a magazine, and you start tearing out pictures of Tahiti. Done. That makes you one step closer to Tahiti. let's say you want to decorate your room, or you want a new kitchen. What you do is that day is maybe you get a designing magazine, or you go on the great website House and you start looking for kitchens. Let's say you want a new job. Awesome. Go to a career fair or buy a book about new careers. Let's say you want to do pottery. Great. So then look up a pottery class or start looking up, beautiful pots online. You want to start getting in the vicinity or forking in the direction of those future goals. And dear ones, that's how you get the law of attraction to begin working for you. Now, you have to also understand that this was the law of attraction. Okay? When Andy attracted that which he was vibrating at. And also, remember, Andy had a template in his past that represented the now. So, coffee shop, wife, children, that's the past. Coffee shop, me, children, where's my wife? And in walks Mary. So this situation really was the law of attraction in action. Andy did great because he was able to pull himself out of it, and he was able to shift his reality by taking a positive step. So even when stuff shows up in our experience that we don't like, there are some that believe that we're supposed to go through that challenge, and I believe that there's a lot of truth to that. This was a lesson that Andy absolutely needed to learn. He needed to break this spell, if you will, and he did. He healed it. He finally found a way to set a boundary. He finally found a way to be peaceful. And the really cool part of the story is that Andy, and I believe we coached on Thursday, so Wednesday, the day before we coached again, he went to the Thai temple on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I believe he manifested 4 different people. He manifested a chef. He manifested somebody who wanted to actually do parties in his business. He manifested a girl to do coffee in the coffee shop. There's 3 or 4 different people. He actually manifested an entire crew Wednesday, the day before our call. So I believe he broke the spell. I believe he learned what he was supposed to learn. And I believe that Andy is on his way to becoming a more conscious, deliberate creator. So I hope this helps. I know it was very long-winded, half hour in. So you guys just let me know. And if it was a little too complicated, let me know. I'll be happy to do it over. So, dear ones, I'm bowing to the love and the light in you. Namaste. Bye.